I stood there, staring at the tall metal fence that now completely surrounded my ranch. Private property, read the sign, bolted right in the center of the locked gate. I blinked. My own land, fenced off, sealed shut like I was the trespasser. I pounded on the gate. It didn't budge. I'd only been gone for 2 days, just 2 days in Houston visiting my mother. And in that short time, someone, or more precisely, the HOA that had been pestering me for months, had decided to cut me off from my own damn property. And not just with a gate, but a fat padlock. No code. No spare key. No note. Just that smug little sign, like it owned the place. Now here comes the part that might make you gag. Instead of screaming, calling lawyers, or raising hell like they probably expected, I went out and bought the tiny sliver of land right under the gate. The land that held the only key to the whole situation. That's right. I bought it. And what happened next? Oh, you're not ready for that. But let me rewind and tell you how things got this crazy in the first place. Name's Jesse Ray. I'm 43, a retired firefighter, and I live on a 40-acre ranch just outside Austin, Texas. After decades of running into burning buildings to save lives, I finally saved up enough to buy a peaceful stretch of land where I could raise horses, grow peaches, and wake up each morning to nothing but birdsong. The first year was bliss. No neighbors, just silence. The kind of quiet that soothes your soul. Then came the Homeowners Association. Not from my land. No, my ranch wasn't part of any neighborhood. It was sovereign, tax-exempt, and entirely mine. But a developer decided to build a high-end subdivision right next door. That's how Pinebrook Meadows came to be, along with its shiny new HOA board. At first, I didn't pay them much mind. They were the newcomers, not me. I had fences, signs, boundary markers. But the HOA had other ideas. First came the letters. They looked official, but I laughed them off. Things like, the color of your barn does not meet community standards, and please remove your tractor from public view. I ignored them all. Why? Because they had no authority over me. My land wasn't under their jurisdiction. Then came the visits. A guy named Mr. Donald Snipe showed up with a cheap name tag and a smug little grin. "We're trying to maintain a harmonious aesthetic for the neighborhood," he told me. "Your property is very visible from the new homes, and the board feels it clashes with the overall design." I asked him if he'd like a fresh pile of horse manure to help balance out the view. He didn't come back. But the HOA didn't stop. A few weeks later, I spotted strange surveyor flags along my fence line. Then I started seeing unfamiliar faces, strangers wandering along the edge of my property, snapping photos, clipboard in hand. I asked one of them what they were doing. They muttered something about a boundary reassessment and scurried off like I'd caught them stealing chickens. I had every inch of this land surveyed when I bought it. The borders were clean, airtight, and legal. But I could feel it. Something was brewing. So I drove down to the county clerk's office, just to make sure there wasn't any backroom deal happening without my knowledge. While I was there, I chatted with an older gentleman behind the counter. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Son, if that HOA's got you in their sights, they'll try anything. Watch your back." He wasn't wrong. The following week, I headed back to Houston to check on my mom. She'd just come out of surgery. I stayed 2 nights to make sure she was okay. On the 3rd day, I drove home, and there it was, a brand-new gleaming silver fence with thick steel mesh wrapped around my entire property like a fortress. This wasn't just a line. It was a wall. No warning. No notice. Just like that, bam! I was locked out of my own land. And right at the only entrance stood a tiny square of land, maybe 5 feet by 5, barely more than a patch of dirt poking out from the edge of the new subdivision. That tiny patch held the gate. And, according to a recent online property filing, the Pinebrook Meadows HOA had quietly purchased that patch 2 weeks earlier. I'll give them this, they were smart. They didn't touch my land. Not technically. They just built around it. Legally. Cleverly. Ruthlessly. They didn't block my access unlawfully. No, they just bought the land around the only entrance, fenced it in, and left me standing outside like a stray dog. I couldn't even reach the gate without, technically, trespassing on their turf. And since they owned the little square holding the only access point, they held the gate, the lock, and the key. I was furious. But you know what they say, the best revenge isn't loud. He's quiet. Calculated. That night, I didn't call the cops. Didn't rage post online. I made one move. I called my buddy Darnell. Darnell's in real estate. Owes me big. 2 years ago, his barn caught fire, and I spent 3 weeks helping him rebuild it, board by board. Darnell, I said, I need you to find out who owns that sliver of land under the gate. The exact parcel. I want to buy it. He laughed. Thought I was joking. I wasn't. 3 days later, he called back. You're not gonna believe this, he said. The guy who sold that gate patch to the HOA? He owns another little lot right behind it, connects straight to the main road. Was planning to sell it later. He didn't even finish his sentence. I wired the money before he could blink. That back lot, now mine. The only land with physical access from the main road. But better yet, on that same lot was a tiny maintenance shed, with the only key to the gate inside. I didn't tell them that. Not yet. I waited. Until the weekend. The big day. Pinebrook Meadows fancy family picnic out on the clubhouse lawn. I rolled up in my old Dodge pickup, parked right at the edge of my new property. I stepped out with a giant red, private property, and no trespassing sign under my arm. As I was hammering it into the dirt, none other than Donald Snipes stormed over, red-faced, looking like a disgruntled tennis coach. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he barked. I smiled, kept driving the signpost into the ground. "Just marking my land," I said. He squinted, confused. "Excuse me?" "Yeah," I said. "Turns out the land behind your shiny new gate, the one with the key shed, doesn't belong to you anymore." I handed him the deed. He froze. This can't be right." "Oh, it's right," I said, slipping the gate key into my pocket with a wink. "Guess I'll be visiting my ranch whenever I damn well please." I strolled past him, back through the gate, my gate, and left him there, blinking like a man who just realized he'd locked himself in a cage. But that wasn't even the craziest part. The real chaos began the next morning. I was sipping coffee on my porch, watching the sun rise over the hills, when I noticed a plume of dust coming up the HOA's gravel road. A caravan of trucks and golf carts was rolling toward the gate like a suburban posse. I figured they were coming to pout about the fence, maybe wag some fingers. I was wrong. They didn't stop at the gate. They rolled right into my land, through the new access I owned, like they had a reservation. My stomach dropped. One of the SUVs parked a foot from my porch steps. Out stepped Donald, flanked by 2 board members and a woman in a stiff gray suit. I recognized her from the HOA welcome pamphlet. Beatrice Langford, Pinebrook Meadows Legal Counsel. Donald didn't say hello. Just held up a folder. "We need to talk, Mr. Ray." I crossed my arms. "Then talk." Beatrice stepped forward like she'd bitten a lemon for breakfast. "You are in violation of HOA zoning regulations and are trespassing on community property." I raised an eyebrow. "Trespassing? On my land?" Donald pointed at the fence. "You're standing inside our community enclosure." Beatrice opened the folder and tapped a map. "As you can see, your ranch is now fully enclosed within the secure perimeter of Pinebrook Meadows. Therefore, we've reclassified it as internal green space." I blinked. You turned my ranch into a park? Not officially, Donald cut in. Yet. We've filed a request with the county. Once approved, your property will fall under HOA guidelines. I nearly choked on my coffee. You're trying to legally absorb my land into your HOA without my consent? Donald gave me that fake polite smile. It's for the greater good of the community. That was the final straw. I walked into the house, grabbed my phone, and called my cousin Travis. Family by blood, lawyer by legend. One of the top land use attorneys in all of Texas. I walked right back out and handed the phone to Donald. It's for you. Travis Ray, attorney at law, came the voice on speaker. You have 3 seconds to vacate my cousin's property before I press charges for trespassing, harassment, and civil liability. Donald went pale. Beatrice snatched the phone to argue, but Travis wasn't done. He launched into a rapid-fire barrage of legal citations, zoning codes, state statutes, federal land rights. It was like watching a combine harvester chew through wheat. They didn't stay long after that. When Beatrice dropped the phrase illegal land enclosure, her jaw practically hit the gravel. They left, rattled, but I knew they'd be back. Still, I needed a break from the circus. So the next morning, I drove into town to grab some supplies and clear my head. I stopped by the local diner for a burger and a tall glass of sweet tea. Halfway through my meal, in walked Sheriff Daniels. Old friend of mine from back in the firefighting days. He didn't ask, just slid into the booth across from me like he owned it. So, he said with a grin, you really managed to tick off the local royalty? You heard already? Buddy, it's all over. The HOA board marched into the station this morning claiming you're barricading their residence and planning to start a sovereign ranch nation. I nearly spit out my tea. Are they serious? Oh, dead serious, he chuckled, clapping me on the shoulder. But don't worry. You messed with the wrong Texan, all right, but they messed with the wrong one too. I thought that was the end of it. Thought maybe, just maybe, things were cooling off. I was wrong. That night, I was brushing down the horses when I heard it, metal hitting dirt. Quiet, but rhythmic. Like shovels. I slipped out the back of the barn, flashlight in hand, and followed the sound to the northern edge of my new fence. And there they were. 3 men in reflective vests, digging a trench. Not on my land, but right next to it, just outside the fence, bordering the narrow strip I'd bought. I yelled. They froze. One dropped a walkie-talkie. I caught a burst of static, then a voice. Keep digging. We need that second access by sunrise. A hidden entrance. They were building a covert backdoor into my property. I bolted back to the house, called Travis again, and launched my drone. Sent it soaring over the scene. Got it all. Digging crews, makeshift blueprints on a folding table, the whole operation lit up under portable floodlights. I zoomed in on one of the maps, just as a spotlight lit up the drone. Then, click, the unmistakable sound of a rifle bolt locking in. They were armed. Over an HOA dispute. Before I could react, a warning shot cracked through the night, boom, echoing across the hills. My drone spiraled down and crashed into the dirt. I dove behind a hay bale, heart hammering in my chest. Who were these people? I waited an hour in the dark before crawling out to retrieve the drone. The camera was toast, but the footage had already uploaded to my cloud. Next morning, I sent everything to Travis and Sheriff Daniels. But what happened that afternoon almost made me question my own sanity. I returned from the grocery store and found the main road to my ranch completely blocked. Not just blocked, repaved. Fresh black asphalt, glowing yellow lines, and a big shiny sign that read, "Coming soon. Pinebrook Meadows North Entrance, HOA Private Road. End of road. Property of Pinebrook Meadows. Residents only." They were paving a road through my land. No warning. No permit. No shame. And the worst part? I saw someone watching from behind the new fence, motionless. Just watching. There she was, Beatrice again. Clipboard in hand, smug little grin like she'd just won a prize goat at the fair. They thought they had me boxed in. Thought they could pave over my land, inch by inch, until I vanished like dust on the wind. But they forgot one thing. I wasn't just Jesse Ray. I was the guy with the only key to the gate. And they had just laid down their future on a stretch of asphalt that now sat in my palm. What I did next kicked off a chain of events that not even their overpriced lawyers could have dreamed up. By the time the sun rose the next morning, I was already up, boots laced, hat on, leaning against my porch rail with a mug of black coffee and a view of that fresh, dark road stretching toward my gate like a tongue trying to lick what didn't belong to it. Pinebrook Meadows thought they were closing in. But I had other plans. Big ones. First call of the day went to Barry McDougal, County Zoning Inspector. Honest guy, BOLO tie always crooked, still says, "Dadgum," like he means it. Years ago, I dragged him out of a burning barn. Never forgot it. I told him what was happening. He let out a whistle so sharp I had to yank the phone from my ear. "They built a road," he said. "No permit? Through your land." "Oh, and they shot down my drone," I added casually. "I'll be there by noon." And sure enough, here he came in a dusty blue pickup, chewing sunflower seeds and carrying a clipboard thicker than the King James Bible. He walked that road inch by inch, snapping photos, scribbling notes, squinting at survey lines, muttering under his breath. By the end, Barry looked like a man personally offended by asphalt. "They're gonna need more than shiny lawyers to wiggle out of this one," he muttered. Right on cue, a sleek black golf cart rolled up like it was Secret Service. Two guys in navy polos hopped out, mirrored sunglasses, earpieces, even a fake badge clipped to one of their belts. Barry narrowed his eyes. "What is this?" "HOA Homeland Security." The taller one puffed out his chest. "You're on Pinebrook Meadows private property. You'll need to leave immediately." Barry laughed so hard he bent double. "Son," he said, straightening up, "I work for Travis County. See this badge?" He held it up like a sheriff in an old western. "You just told a government inspector to leave a ranch that your HOA illegally paved over. Good luck explaining that in court." Silence. Thick enough to pour over pancakes. Barry shut down the construction right there. Issued a full-stop order and said the county commission would follow up, with fines, legal action, and possibly jail time for unauthorized land use. The HOA's little golf cart detail drove off without a word. But peace didn't last. That night, someone broke into my barn. Luckily, I'd installed cameras after their fencing stunt. Caught everything in crisp HD, two masked men in hoodies, spraying something flammable on my hay bales. One had a red gas can. The other, a lighter. I called 911 before they could light it. By the time sheriff's deputies arrived, the men were gone. But the footage? It was undeniable. Sheriff Daniels watched the tape and let out a low, angry curse. "They wanted that barn in flames," he said. "Make you look reckless. Wreck your insurance. Stir up outrage. Maybe get you evicted. Classic setup." And he knew who they were. We both did. The next morning, I printed out every single frame of that footage and stapled them to my front fence under one bold, block-letter headline. "Try again. I don't bluff. And I don't back down." The HOA didn't respond, not directly. But I knew they were watching. That afternoon, a little white drone hovered over my porch for a solid half-hour, buzzing like a mosquito with a trust fund. I knocked it out of the sky with a slingshot. That night, I paid a visit to an old friend, the man who'd sold me that sliver of land near the gate. Mr. Ernest Walker. quiet, kind, and not one bit surprised to see me on his porch. He lived in a shack on the edge of town. Ernest Walker. Looked like a relic from a different century, but don't let the flannel and rocking chair fool you. The man was sharp. He used to own all the land that Pinebrook Meadows now sits on. Sold it off piece by piece over the years. We'd sit on his porch, sipping iced tea and swapping old stories. "You know," he said one day, peering over his glasses, "I've still got a few surprises left." I straightened up. Surprises. He nodded. Tiny slices. Legal ones. Just a few feet wide, but right where it matters. Cutting through their walking trails, their fancy clubhouse entrance, even right under that pompous fountain of theirs. I nearly dropped my glass. "You're saying you own the land under some of their key features?" He grinned. "Damn right I do. You planning on selling it?" He winked. 2 days later, the papers were signed. I was now the proud owner of a 6-foot-wide strip that ran straight across the only parking lot in front of Pinebrook Meadows HOA clubhouse. I didn't build a wall. Not yet. I just planted a small wooden sign right in the middle of that pavement. Private property. Trespass at your own risk. Under surveillance. That's all it took. By sunset, Donald Snipe came storming up to my gate again, waving a piece of paper like he was holding the 10 Commandments. "This is a court order," he shouted. "You can't block access. You're endangering our community." I leaned against my fence, coffee in hand. "Who blocked who first, Donald?" His face turned chili pepper red. "This isn't over." "I know," I said. "That's the fun part." But I wasn't ready for what came next. The HOA filed an emergency motion in county court to seize temporary control of my land. Claimed public disturbance, safety violations, breach of community standards. They were trying to legally take my ranch, by court order. The hearing was set for next week. I needed backup. So I made a call to someone Pinebrook Meadows didn't know I had on speed dial, Senator Bobby Lane. I pulled him from a burning car wreck years ago, minutes before it went up in flames. He never forgot. I laid it all out, fence, drone, the road, the court date. He listened in silence. Then said, "I'll handle it, Jesse. But listen, these people play dirty. You haven't seen the worst of it." He was right. The very next morning, I woke up to the sound of an excavator. Looked out the window, and there it was, rolling straight for my porch like a steel beast, roaring louder with each foot closer. Dust clouds billowed as the claw lowered toward my front steps. I sprinted outside barefoot, yelling, "HEY! Whoa! Back off!" The driver didn't even blink. Behind dark sunglasses, I barely heard him over the engine. "Just doing what the paperwork says." Paperwork? I waved my arms like a lunatic. "Kill the engine." Now. He didn't. That's when I heard sirens. Sheriff Daniels came flying down the gravel road like justice on wheels, lights flashing, tires spitting rock. He braked hard and jumped out before the truck stopped moving. "Shut it down," he roared, hand hovering over his holster. The machine hesitated, then hissed to a stop. Daniels marched up to the driver. "Who sent you?" The man handed him a folded piece of paper. Daniels unfolded it, squinted, then frowned. "This is fake," he said flatly. I stepped closer. "What?" He showed it to me. Looked official, a temporary easement permit for construction. Stamped with a counterfeit county seal. Even had the forged signature of a zoning officer I personally knew. "They're desperate," Daniels muttered. "This is high-level fraud." He called it in, took statements, and impounded the excavator on the spot. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt hunted. Because this wasn't about fences or gates anymore. This was war. That night I didn't sleep. sat on my porch with a shotgun across my lap and Ranger, my dog, at my feet. Scanned the tree line every 10 minutes. My land used to be my peace, my little slice of heaven. Now it felt like a battleground. At dawn, I called Travis. Told him everything. He told me to stay calm, that court was still a few days off, and this was just them trying to provoke me. I said I didn't want to be provoked. I wanted to strike back. I wanted to expose them. So the plan began. It started with the footage, drone clips from before it got shot down, security cam videos of the trespassers in my barn, Barry's inspection photos, the land sale records, even the forged permit Daniels confiscated. But none of that mattered if it stayed buried in files. People needed to see. So I sent everything, every clip, every photo, every fake permit, to a local reporter named Allison Price. But Allison wasn't your average local news at 6 kind of reporter. She was known for burning down corruption with a mic in one hand and 1 million followers behind her. If a scandal had a pulse, she could turn it into a wildfire. She called the next day. "I've seen it all, Mr. Ray. This is insane. Can I come out to the ranch?" I said yes. She brought a cameraman and enough equipment to film a Netflix docuseries. They spent hours walking the perimeter, filming the locked gate, the rogue access road, the fake construction site, even the HOA's wannabe security patrols. I held nothing back. Told her everything. That night, 6 p.m. sharp, it aired. Headline: HOA goes rogue. Rancher battles land grab scandal in Pinebrook Meadows. The internet lit up. 3 million views in under 24 hours. The HOA's website crashed from angry comments. Their phone lines melted down. Their social media pages went dark. Protesters showed up outside their HQ with signs reading, "Let Jesse be. Freedom doesn't have a fence." I figured that would cool things off. I was wrong. 3 days before the court date, I got a letter from a local bank claiming my mortgage was being foreclosed due to non-payment. Only problem? I didn't have a mortgage. I bought my land in cash. Owned every blessed acre. I drove straight to the bank. The receptionist looked at her screen and squinted. "Mr. Ray, it says here foreclosure proceedings were initiated by the Pinebrook Meadows HOA for unpaid dues and infrastructure penalties." "What dues?" I asked, my voice tight. She blinked. "It says you owe $17,000. $17,000. For what?" She hesitated. Excessive fence shadow, unauthorized livestock, unregistered equine units, and sun glare off your barn roof. I burst out laughing. It was so ridiculous, it almost hurt. Travis wasn't laughing, though. He called an emergency meeting with the county judge overseeing our case. Laid out every bogus invoice, every fraudulent fee. The judge issued a cease and desist order that same afternoon, halting all HOA actions until the hearing. Bought us some time. But they weren't done. 2 nights before the trial, the power went out. Not a storm. Not a grid failure. Someone had cut the main line, clean through, just behind the barn, where it connected to the county pole. Ranger barked his head off, but by the time I grabbed my flashlight, whoever did it was gone. No lights. No heat. No cameras. They wanted me vulnerable. But I wasn't the same man I was months ago. I'd learned. I'd hardened. I'd gone quiet. I cranked up the generator, lit some candles, and sat alone in the dark with my notebook. I wasn't planning how to stop them anymore. I was planning how to end this. And I knew exactly where to hit. Because Pinebrook Meadows had a weakness. One they didn't even know I'd uncovered. Their precious HOA headquarters, that marble monument to arrogance? It stood on land that didn't belong to them. It was one of Ernest Walker's forgotten pieces. And guess who held the deed now? Me. So at sunrise, the day before the trial, I marched up the front steps of the Pinebrook Meadows office tower. Glass doors gleaming, brass signs shining, flags fluttering like they ran a damn country, and I nailed my own notice to the front door. A full-size, legal eviction order. It read, "Official notice. You are trespassing on private property. Cease all operations immediately. Owner, Jesse Ray." People inside stared through the glass like they'd seen a ghost. I turned and walked away, slow, deliberate, letting the local news cameras catch every step. Allison Price was right there in the front row. She whispered to her cameraman, "We're going live in 5, 4. Then the doors burst open. Donald Snipe, in a full suit, sweat stains blooming under his arms, stormed out like a man with a snake in his shoe. "What the hell is this?" he shouted, ripping the notice from the door. I didn't even turn around. Just said, "Read the fine print, Donald. You built your empire on land you don't own." He yelled something. I didn't care. "This won't hold up in court." "Oh, I'm counting on that," I muttered, grinning. The video had already gone viral before I even pulled into the driveway. Across the country, people were rallying. Farmers, veterans, ranchers, even city folks who'd never touched a fence post in their lives. My inbox was flooded with support. And then the donations started. Someone, don't even know who, launched a GoFundMe. In under 12 hours, it had cracked $100,000. The HOA? They hated it. And just like I'd hoped, they reacted exactly the way panicked bullies do, by overreaching. That night, someone tried to serve me another court order. Claimed I was illegally obstructing essential operations and interfering with a legally recognized civil organization. It was nonsense. Travis read through it and snorted. Did a high schooler write this with a thesaurus and a grudge? But still, we knew desperation makes people dangerous. The night before the hearing, I was up late at the kitchen table. Ranger snoozed at my feet as I went over everything one last time. Deeds, drone footage, sale receipts, fake invoices, the excavator stunt, the power line sabotage. All of it. 2 a.m. Then I heard it, gravel crunching. Boots. I grabbed my coat, loaded the shotgun, and killed the lights. Moved to the front door slow, steady, and peered out through the curtain. One figure stood at the gate. Hands raised. Alone. "Say something," I barked. A voice shaky. "It's me. Beatrice Langford." I froze. The HOA's attorney stood under the moonlight, looking nothing like the polished shark I'd faced in court. She was tired, heels caked in dust, hair undone, voice cracking like glass under strain. "I need to speak. Alone. Please." I didn't trust her, but I listened. She stepped just far enough to enter the porch light. Hands still raised. "I'm not here for Pinebrook Meadows," she said. "I'm here because I've had enough." Slowly, she pulled a flash drive from her coat pocket. "This has everything. Internal memos, emails, proof they planned the road scam, the forged foreclosure papers, even instructions to burn down your barn." I didn't move. "They crossed a line," she whispered. "I didn't sign up for this. I'm done." She turned and walked back into the dark. At dawn, I walked into the courthouse beside Travis. Ranger waited outside with a friend of mine. Inside, the judge, Carol Ames, tough as Texas limestone, called the court to order. Left side of the room, Donald Snipe, 3 lawyers, piles of folders, half the HOA board red-faced and flustered. Right side, just me and Travis. 2 chairs. 1 plan. Judge Ames scanned the files for 5 minutes, then raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Ray," she said, "are you ready to present your defense?" Travis stood. "Your Honor, we're not here to defend. We're here to expose. And that's what we did. Fake documents. Illegal fence. Excavator stunt. arson attempt, power sabotage, false court filings. Then came the kill shot. Travis handed the court clerk the USB drive. This was submitted anonymously. It contains internal communications from the HOA describing a coordinated plan to coerce Mr. Ray off his land using fraud, harassment, and illegal tactics. Silence. Not a cough. Not a whisper. Judge Ames clicked her pen. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then leaned forward. And the land their headquarters is built on? Travis continued. My client legally purchased it 2 weeks ago. The HOA's lawyer tried to object. The judge cut her off with a look that could turn fire to frost. By the end, Judge Ames leaned back, calm but deadly. I've seen shady dealings before, she said, but this is a full-blown assault on a citizen's rights. She ruled in my favor on every count. Not only did she dismiss all claims against me, she fined Pinebrook Meadows $500,000 for damages and ordered a full investigation of the HOA board. But the real thunderclap came 2 hours later. Every single member of the board, including Donald Snipe, was escorted out of the Pinebrook Meadows office in handcuffs by county deputies. I watched it on Allison Price's live stream. They didn't even get to take their little golf cart.